Eating Out Survival Guide
Boom.
part two, which is during the experience.
Yep. Good.
So you've planned, it's now freaking go time,
Yep.
right? So let's talk about during the experience. And during the experience, it's basically it's a two-part thing because you have the ordering and the wait. So you order your food, now you're waiting for your food, and then you have the actual eating of your food and being present with your food and your company if you have company, right? So when it comes to ordering the wait, well, the first thing it comes down to those like ABCDs. Are you declining starters or did you enjoy them? Like, did you plan them in? So if they are not planned, like you can opt to decline if you're going out with like a whole group of people. Trying to put it out of arm's reach would be a great thing as well.
Yep. And the starters also, like we've talked about before, include like bread, chips, whatever. So it
Yep.
doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be like, ordered appetizers. Especially if you are going out with a group and it is like bread for the table or chips for the table. Like she said, just kind of keep them out of arm's reach or just politely decline. You don't necessarily have to give a reason to. I know sometimes that can be challenging along the journey when you aren't going to partake to decline without giving a reason. But you can just say, like, I'm good.
I want more room for my entree.
Yeah. Or just like, oh, like I'm good for now, right? Or I'll
Yeah.
wait for my food, or I'm excited, or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I'm okay.
Yep.
That is a perfectly good reason. And
That's all
guess
you
what?
need.
You don't need a reason.
Yep. So I'm good. No
Yeah,
reason there. Just like, no, I'm good.
exactly.
Yep.
And then order what you planned for. You took
Yep.
all of this time to figure out where, I mean, maybe you didn't figure out where you were going, but like what you were going to eat. So like order what you planned for.
Yep. And if you weren't able to plan ahead, you went out with a group, you didn't know, then like, we'll take a look, like, get in there, decide what you think is going to be the best choice for this meal, then close the menu and move on. Because I know
Yep.
even for ourselves, the longer you look at the menu,
Oh
the better
gosh.
everything looks. Like maybe this, maybe that. I don't know. When they get here, I'll make a split decision. So just like, all right, cool. Like open it up. Kind of go with your first instincts. Like, oh, like this sounds good. Put the menu aside so that way you can go for it.
Yeah, and if you need to, remember why was it that you were going out to eat?
Yep.
What was the purpose behind it? And then like when you're ordering, like if you had decided to share something or you wanted half of your meal packaged up, make sure you tell your waiter like, hey, will you package up half of this before you bring it to me? Or hey, we're gonna split this. Can you split it? Like you can do the splitting yourself, or you can ask them to do it. It's totally up to you. Pros and cons of having them do it for you. But what happens if like your food's not on the menu? You're like, I freaking planned for this. What the heck am I gonna eat?
Yeah, you looked ahead and apparently you saw a seasonal menu or something happened and they're out.
It happens.
And you go there and like, oh yeah, that menu was from 2001. We no longer have that anymore. We need to update our online menu. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Now we're a vegan restaurant.
Yeah, yeah. So like if something's not on the menu, that you can ask the waiter like, oh, like is there something like similar that you would recommend? Or you can even try ordering what we call like off menu. And so ordering off menu is also great for if you're going out to eat and you want to try to help like keep your calories lower, because realistically, like with the amount of food intolerances and people's just like specific palate, we'll say these days, restaurants have made it very simple for you to be able to craft anything it is that you want realistically. Like it can be a little bit awkward, and obviously as long as you're not going to like a particularly like I'm going to this fancy restaurant and it's a 5 course meal and everything's coursed out, then you're probably not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, and obviously like they have to have the ingredients. And
Yeah.
so like take a look at it, you're like, oh cool, like they have they have a grilled chicken dish. I could probably get them to make me some form of, chicken breast
Yeah.
with some veggies or whatever. Because like if you're going to, a vegan restaurant, you're not gonna be able to say, hey, look, make me a burger. It's like
Yeah.
that's like you have to be, realistic and work with what they got. But if you take a look at the menu, say, oh, cool, look, like they have fish or they have this, maybe I can ask them to put together something that makes sense for me.
Yeah. And then if you're trying to keep it lower calories, can you grill, bake, or steam that? Because realistically, like they can, and those options help, reduce the amount of fats that you are getting when you are going out to eat. Because we'll tell you right now, most of the time, depending on who is serving you, there's going to be a good portion of fat, whether that's accounted for or not, inside of the nutrition facts that they are showing.
Once again, depending on what they have available, because not every restaurant, gets all of the raw ingredients and then puts it all
Yeah.
together in the back. Like some restaurants do get things like pre-grit, like pre-breaded or pre-seasoned or all of that. So does depend on the restaurant, but you can always ask. Whereas like, hey, look, can you do this for me or make this for me in this way? And most places will accommodate to the best of their ability.
For sure. And then if you once again trying to keep calories lower, you can skip the fats. So like anything that says like fried, blackened uses a lot of oil. Crispy, breaded, battered, creamy, cheesy, au gratin, smothered.
So anything that's delicious, I was like, oh, that looks good.
But
Next, no,
and once again, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just it's gonna have higher calories. So like depending on how much you've accounted for, like it
yeah,
plays a factor. Even like asking for sauces or dressings on the side, because like especially with salads, like dipping your fork in it and then taking a bite of your salad is actually a lot more flavorful most of the time than having it completely smothered and then your greens are all soggy and all weird or whatever, or
yep.
seeing what low calorie options they have.
And most of the time sauces are just fat. So I think
Yeah.
people are like, oh, like aioli, that sounds good. It's just mayonnaise. It's
Yes.
flavored mayonnaise. Get out of
Exactly.
here.
Exactly. Yes, it is. It is
Yeah.
1,000%.
And because then most people will probably get disgusted if they're like, oh, I'm gonna dip my fries in mayonnaise. But if you give them a nice like flavored like aioli, it's like, oh, this is good. I'm just gonna eat it. It's like,
Unless you're like the old school, like, oh, I have a piece of asparagus or artichoke, and I know there's people, my mother used to do this and dip it in mayonnaise. Like, I think I used to do that. I
growing up,
might
I
still
we
do
used to
that.
do artichoke, the leaf, like
That's insane. Yes.
each leaf in
Yes.
there with
I
mayonnaise.
know. I get
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not now. We definitely don't do that.
Yeah,
Our
probably,
palates have
yeah,
changed.
that would put a blooming onion to shame in regards to calories.
It would, it would. But then also like, okay, now I want to pick my carbs. Are you gonna do a starchier carb? Are we going for like rice? Are we going potatoes? Are we going like a little less starchy? Thinking about veggies like green beans, asparagus, broccoli, those types of things. And then you can always do like double veggies. So if you're like, oh, I want to reserve my carbs to have a cocktail, then do double veggies.
Yep.
And then, once again, can they grill, bake, or steam any of those types of things?
Yeah, because even like if you go to a Mexican restaurant, it's like, oh, you get, tacos and it comes with rice and beans. Like you could probably substitute it for some type of veggie they have at the restaurant, even if it's just like fajita veggies. Like, oh,
Yeah.
like, can I have some grilled veggies on the side? And those would be fun to throw in your tacos or have a little bit on, eat them as their own side dish and still have a really good dish.
Yep. The other thing is making sure that you stay hydrated. And so this not only helps, we'll say like keeping your idle hands busy, but having like water, filling up on water will also help with extra sodium that you might be partaking in by going out. So staying hydrated, having a sip of water. If you did get a cocktail, like enjoy your cocktail and then have some water right after. Or if you only planned in for a cocktail, then and you still want like something like flavorful or something to sip on outside of water, get a 0 calorie drink. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's
Yep.
enjoyable.
And like realistically, like drinking anything is not going to take away hunger, but it will
No,
take up room in your stomach,
for
which
sure.
may make it challenging to eat more later. So it does help. And then, like you said, the extra fluid of the hydration does help to process all of the food and all of the things.
But most of the time it's just like we're like, I gotta do something with my hands. Like you think about going so like out socially, a lot of people they like it's a drinking, everyone's drinking. It's like you don't have to drink something that's alcoholic, but like having that like cocktail or mocktail or whatever in your hand does make a difference and can add that like comfort and ease anxiety for certain
And they've
people.
done social studies where it's like, oh, cool. Like when people are eating or drinking, it's like, oh, like one person takes a sip and then the whole group will take a
Yes,
sip or whatever.
yes,
And same thing where it's like, and that's part of the reason that like chips and bread at the beginning are so dangerous because like, oh, like people are just bored and they're talking, they'll just keep going back.
yep,
So like if you did have chips at the table and you're struggling, then every time you want to grab a chip, have a sip of water, right?
yep,
So it's like do something while everyone else is doing it. And you'll probably end up with a lot less calories and enjoy the meal differently.
yep. And then conversate. So like before the food arrives is the ideal time to have a conversation because guess what? Your mouth is not full of food,
Yep.
right?
Yep. I'll
And
probably
then
have less chips.
this is true. Make sure that you are also like enjoying on your time there because you've done this whole thing just like you're planning your vacation. You planned the vacation, you plan the experience that you want. Now it's time to actually enjoy it. Focus on the experience as a whole, like the ambiance, like the smells, your company, the conversation. Also, you can take note if you are having any urges, if you're like, oh my God, this bread of chips or this bread of chips, this bread basket,
Bread and chips. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
that's a new
Next
one.
level.
It's calling me. It's like, okay, so like then talk, distract yourself,
When I was gonna say
slow down.
and I was gonna say with the conversation, I know sometimes it's like, oh, like when you want to start a conversation, you ask the question, but then what happens is the other person's talking, so now you still have to fill the space. Like, oh, like
Yeah,
maybe I should be eating chips while they're answering or taking a drink while they're answering. So like like she said,
Focus on the conversation, on
you,
what they're saying.
yeah, or you can just start talking. Say, oh,
Yep.
like start talking about your day or a past experience or something in the restaurant, point it out, or like, oh
Your
man,
food freedom journey,
yeah,
what you're doing right
yeah,
now.
it's like, oh, look at that lady's hair over there, or what, start people watching and like point things out, but allow yourself to be able to like you can talk, right? Because it will be a lot harder for you to overconsume if you're the one carrying the conversation.
Yep, because your mouth isn't full except for words. It's full of words.
Yep.
But like realistically, like be present and in the moment. Because what it like what exactly is like being present? Being present is like once again, what is the person saying? You're listening to what it is that they're actually saying versus trying to figure out what you're going to say right after that,
Yep.
right? You're focused on like the sights, the smells, the tastes and textures of your food, like even like as you're eating it. So you're focusing on everything and just being right there with your person and with food. And this is a skill. It is a skill. And it is something that takes time. And it also actually being present helps with satiation.
Yep.
So,
And it's something that like realistically, it's almost like if anyone's ever tried to meditate, where it's like, oh, like you'll try to meditate and then like your thoughts will run wild, and
yep,
then you're just like, all right, like let that thought complete and then come back to, your breath or whatever. So same thing here. So you can be present. And the reality is that there's going to be times where it gets away from you. You run away in your own head, but like that's fine. Allow yourself to be able to recenter, draw back to the person's
yep,
conversation or to each bite, and then just enjoy it.
yep,
Right. But it is something that like even when you master it, you'll continue to have to
for
work
sure.
at it.
Yeah. And so, like, one thing that helps with being present and living in the moment is slowing down. A
Yep.
lot of people just in life, we are go, 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 go. So give yourself permission to slow down, which is also a skill.
Yep.
And so let's kind of dive a little deeper into the eating and presence. Well, once again, giving yourself permission to slow down and breathe. Enjoy the food. One of the things that is a challenge for many people, but if you think about it, like try and be the last person to finish. Try to be the last person to
It's
finish your
never
food.
me. I lose that game every time.
But like doing this is once again like slow down, breathe between your bites rather than like let me pile everything in. Savor your
This
bites.
is not something that I do, but you can put your burger down after you pick
You
it up.
can, you don't have to hold it the whole
Or
time.
same thing. If you have a burrito, it's not once you pick it up, go time until it's done. But for me, it is. So that is something I'm still working on. For me, it's like, all right, like once this first bite happens, same thing. If we're sharing something, and if it's a burrito or a burger,
I put it on my plate so that I know like
or
mine.
if I'm like, hey, look, like you have to take the first bite because like once I start,
It's
it's
true.
boom, it's just like I'm not putting it down. I could get better at that. But same thing. So just for like you don't have to be like me. If you take a bite of your burger, you can set it down. For me, if I'm gonna have a drink while I'm eating a burger, that stays in one hand, the drink goes in the other. But most of the time, I'm not even stopping for a drink.
Once again, it's a skill and it takes intention and time to do.
Yes, one that I do not have.
If you if you anything that needs to be eaten with a fork, put your fork down. So like just like you said, like
What?
you can put your burrito down, you can put your hamburger down, you can
No,
put your fork
that's
down,
breaking the rules.
and like putting your fork down and like just relax.
No,
Like let me put my hands down and I'm gonna chew. I'm gonna do one action. One action is
no, because you're
chewing,
just gonna pick it right back up.
and
That's like making the
and
bed in the
one
morning.
action is chewing, and I'm gonna focus on what is in my mouth so I can actually enjoy the textures, the taste, the sensations that are happening inside of my mouth.
No, that's like making the bed in the morning. You're just gonna make so I might as well just leave it messy.
But if
I'm just kidding.
chopsticks are
I make the
available,
bed.
if chopsticks are available, if you're at an Asian restaurant, yes, they can be a bitch for the non-chopstick masters like ourselves. But it helps you slow down. And when you slow down, then you allow yourself to start to like digest and focus on what you're doing at hand, right?
Yep.
Another thing that we really enjoy doing is talking about the food because obviously, like when you're eating, I don't like to talk and eat unless I'm talking about what it is that I am currently doing.
Eating.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And
acknowledge the food. It also helps you to like cherish it differently. If you take a bite of something, and you want to reflect on like, oh, like how was it? What do you taste? Would you improve anything? Like all of those things
mhm.
kind of forces you to be more present, right?
And you're sharing in the experience.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh, cool. Like I had this, like, how is it? And like more than just like good. It's like, all right, like, well, like legitimately, how is it? What do you enjoy? What do you taste? Like all of those things. And realistically, that is a skill as well. Because the
Yep.
first couple times, just like, how is it?
That's okay.
Yeah, and even if you ask your friends, like try it with your friends. How is it? Most of them like, oh, it's good. It's like that's it. Like,
What did you enjoy about it?
tell me about it. Tell
Yeah.
me about it. Right? Like if I couldn't eat anything, describe it to me.
It's like when your wife says like when you ask like, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Well, oh, okay. Tell me more.
Define fine.
But here's a little bonus food for thought. So let's say like, what if like you planned for this 900 calorie burrito, and then you got this like baby ass little meal. It's like 500 calories. I know we've gone to certain places and they're like super fancy, and they're a lot smaller, and we're like, oh my God, what is this, a freaking taster?
Yeah. Or even like I feel like we've like years ago went to Chipotle and they used to these like baby sized burritos. Like,
Yes,
all right, cool. So
yes,
then we're on a road trip. Let's go to Chipotle.
yeah,
We'll stop there. And then we go and get in this like fucking size of an egg. Now it's
yeah,
like, what happened?
yeah,
The calories on their website didn't change, but I
yeah,
swear this burrito is a fraction of the
yeah,
size.
for sure.
But like
Or
didn't die.
what if you got this?
Yeah.
We personally ordered this thing. We didn't realize, like, we knew it was massive,
Yeah.
but like, look at this, the size of our forearms. And
Yeah.
so like, I just put a calorie amount. When we had gone and experienced this, I did not do an estimation for this,
Yeah.
but like, let's say you got this and it was 4,000 calories.
So we got a Diet Coke to offset it. So it's
Exactly.
net neutral.
Yeah, for sure. This is the inside. It was really good.
Yes.
Salulitas, they have multiple
Shout
locations.
out.
But realistically, like, what if it's like bigger, smaller, or different than you expected, right? So if it's smaller than you expected, like, take it as a win.
Yeah, especially if
Like,
you're in a if you're trying to lose calorie or lose weight. It's like, all right, cool, like great. Just like getting sick. It's like, hey, look, there's a silver lining here.
yeah. So like, yeah, you could also adjust your guesstimate of like, oh, like I eat a little bit less calories today, like, or you just like, I now know what to expect when I go to this place. Like, great. Yes, you could, depending on like how under you think it is, have a couple extra bites of something. I will tell you that this is a slippery slope only because it's like, oh, well, maybe like I think it was probably 100 calories less. So like I should probably consume an extra 100 calories, but that 100 calories really turns into like 500 to 1,000 calories.
Yeah,
So
it's
like
like, oh,
then
like
now you're over.
yeah, like
So
oh, like the burrito's a little bit smaller. Maybe we can split a dessert, and then you decide like, all right,
yeah, that's it's like 500. Like
yeah, you just move down the whole thing, right?
yeah,
The other person has one bite, and you're like, oh, I dusted this. I was like, well, now I'm over, right? So I would say like with that, it's like I would encourage you adjust the guesstimation so you could see potentially like where you actually ended up or closer to where you actually ate, but don't necessarily try to make up those calories. That would be like having a wearable fitness thing and trying to make up for every step that you took.
yeah. But if it's larger than expected,
Oh,
like
every woman's dream.
you
There you
could
go.
leave food on the plate, like you totally
Yep.
can. You
Take
can
it all.
also package up part of it to either eat later, send it home with whoever, like if you don't live with them and it's like a friend, be like, here, take it to a roommate. They can eat it later. Give it to a homeless person, give it away. Or guess what? You can eat it all. You can. Like you can eat it if it was larger than expected and you're like, fuck it, I don't care. I'm going to consume it.
Yeah.
That is fine.
But the reality is like those are all of these situations are always best when you consciously make the decision. Like if it comes and you're like, oh wow, this is way more than I expected, then decide how do you want to handle it versus like it just sitting down in front of you, you dusting the whole thing and then not acknowledging it.
Yeah. And so like there's no right or wrong answer with this. Like it's literally, it is just a choice.
Yep.
And so every meal out, it's a learning experience. It is an experience and it is a learning experience.
Yep.
And one underestimation, it's not going to kill your progress out. Now, if you continually underestimate or you continually overestimate, then there's going to be a little bit of factors. But once again, you're monitoring these things and you're aware and intentional of the thoughts that you are having and the actions that you are doing.
Yep. And the underestimation realistically, if fat loss is a goal, like that'll probably help move things forward. But that the bigger toll that takes is the potential like emotional toll, right? Because if you're underestimating and you think that you're eating 2,000 calories or 1,600 calories and you're only eating 1,000, then that can wear on you mentally. It's like, oh, like I can only do this if I'm eating this amount of calories. That starts to like that diet fatigue set in.
Maybe that would be if they're overestimating. No, wait, I don't know.
No, I was saying more like if they're underestimating and they think that like, hey, look, I have to eat on less and less calories, or they see it and it's like, oh, like they feel like they have to eat a small amount because they accounted for 1,600, but they only ate 12, and it's like, oh man, this is a small
Oh,
amount of
okay,
food.
okay.
Yeah, but there we go.
All right. But it's about being aware. It's about being aware of your decisions and enjoying the actual process. So in conclusion, order what you planned for. Hydrate. If they don't have what you planned for, then decide how you're going to act accordingly. But like enjoy your time there and be present, enjoy your company, enjoy the food, allow yourself to slow down, breathe and relax and join
Learn,
us
learn,
for
learn
part
from
3.
every experience.
Yeah, because learning is how we grow and how we evolve and continue to craft the life and body that we love living, right? But if you have any questions, submit a burning question or apply for a breakthrough session inside the Fit Foodie coaching course.